depopulation, military issues, economic problems. If you were to ask different people why Rome fell, you would most likely get some very different answers. The truth is that it was a combination of many different causes and lots of different outside conditions that caused the decline and eventually the ending of the empire as we know it. For example, there is a huge list of reasons that the empire fell, however only when you put them together you see how they could have made an impact. However, some reasons are more relevant than others. Since it would be impossible to talk about the many different explanations for this series of events, we have created a list that encompasses all of the major problems. Xanthi, Krishna, and Robert will talk about some of the aforementioned problems and offer a little insight on why they impacted the empire in the way they did.
After the Pax Romana, there was a major population decrease in the Roman Empire. On the way back from battle, the soldiers of the Western Roman Empire brought with them a plague. The plague was such a bad plague that it killed a good portion of the people in and out of Rome, about 10%. This resulted in a much lower population. It took an immediate effect on the Romans, as a large part of the peasants were killed off, which meant that there were not enough people to produce food and sustain the people of the Roman Empire, resulting in people starving. Due to the lower population, the government had to enforce higher taxes to keep the empire from going bankrupt. Peasants either went bankrupt or those who still had land sold themselves into slavery. This led to the development of serfs and villa. There were also problems for the military. Since the plague killed off soldiers, there were not enough men to serve in the army. This made the Romans susceptible to attack from the barbarians.
Taxes took money away from people, and thus when the next round of taxes came around, they were unable to pay and thus started starving. Therefore, they started working for people in villas, as serfs. There were also economic causes of the Roman Empire's fall. Primarily, it was because the government did not have enough money to pay for expenditures such as the army. When soldiers did not get their pay/bonuses/raises, they would become less loyal to Rome, sometimes going as far as staging a military coup and installing their general as the new emperor. Emperors attempted to deal with this deficit of money by debasing the coinage. A coin that was previously 100% or 95% gold would end up being only 90% or less. These coins cost less to make, allowing production of more, thus creating wealth. But on the whole, each coin was less valuable, necessitating more coins to achieve the same worth, causing problems like economic recessions, inflation, etc., etc. Quite understandably, this angered both sides. This angered the soldiers, who, as stated previously, would revolt, dethrone emperors, go to step 1, repeat forever, or until Rome falls, whichever comes first. The reason not enough money was available in the first place was because the Roman conquest had slowed down dramatically during the Pax Romana, drawing up the easy income from other peoples and other lands.
After the Pax Romana, the population of Rome saw a sharp decline. This is mainly due to plague and the poor economic conditions. The sharp decline in population also had other effects on the Roman Empire. With a diminished population to draw from, recruits to the army were tight. The army was small and needed more soldiers to fend off the attacks of the Huns and the invading Germanic tribesmen. To maintain what lands they already had, the Western Roman army decided to recruit the help of some allied nomadic German tribes to fight in wars temporarily before returning to their homeland. These troops were called the Foederati. This was a good fix temporarily, but didn't work out well in the long run. First of all, the Germanic tribesmen were loyal to their own chiefs for the most part, who took commands from Roman officers. To take precautions, there were several genocides of Gothic soldiers who Romans suspected might plan an uprising. This might have been good for the army to rid itself of possible traitors, but it came at a bad time when the West really needed soldiers to fight off other armies. Secondly, barbarization of the army is a bad idea if you don't have the money to train the soldiers. The Romans tended to use tight formations in organized fighting, while the Germanic tribesmen fought more freely and with less formation. Rome ended up with a terrible combination of freer fighting and organized formations. The army continued losing battles, and slowly the territory of the empire dwindled. Since the army failed to protect its citizens, no one wanted to participate in it. The army got so desperate for members that it started drafting people. At first, citizens avoided being drafted by mutilating themselves, but even then the army still drafted them. In the end, the army was largely composed of untrained tribesmen, unhappy Romans, and people with disabilities due to their mutilation. Connections. Although the fall of the Western Roman Empire was unique in some ways, other empires fell for the same reasons. China, for example, also had a depopulation problem. Also, during the Han rule, the core of the empire was weakened by succession disputes, and members of government being less loyal to the emperor. This happened in Rome too, with the constant assassinations and inconsistent leaders. The core was weakened under the dispute. Persia also fell for similar reasons. The Persians spent their time and money fighting off invaders and not on producing food. When the empire needed money for resources, it raised taxes and devalued its money. This leads to rebellions and the economy crashing, and once again the empire needed money. The Romans were cursed with the same terrible cycle. In the end, all three of these empires collapsed under their own internal pressures of civil war, political unrest, and economic failure. These reasons, combined with outside threats, have shown that they can take down an entire empire.
After several bouts of economic struggle, including both internal and external conflict, the Western Roman Empire was brought to its proverbial knees. This made it rather easy for the Germanic tribes to find places to settle down within the empire. With the dethroning of the Emperor Romulus in the late 400s and the rise of the conqueror Odoacer to that position, the Western Roman Empire as we knew it disappeared. A new age had begun.